Actually, the map suit the leader, I swear. Yeah, because it's as though Kaido bigger than her, although they're the same size. Hey, welcome to the DPP channel, and today I do have an exciting One Piece deck profile, and I have been brewing this for quite a while because, One Piece meta has always been constantly evolving, and for us to actually decide on the deck list, you do need a lot of testing, and today I do have this deck with me, and is actually the Charlotte Ling Ling, or rather commonly known as Big Mom, and I'm going to do a deck profile on her. Okay, she has such an awesome skill, which I believe that not many have really explored more with. Mainly people are going to explore with Katakuri, because the Katakuri leader is definitely a much stronger candidate. But I do have this Big Mom deck profile to share with you guys, and I believe you guys will be very interested in it. So let's start off with this Big Mom skill first. So for Big Mom, it does have a very strong ability. Just by attaching 2 Dawn, when you attack your opponent, you can actually take 1 life from the top or bottom, adding it to hand. And if you do have 2 or less life, you actually can add 1 card from your hand to the top of the life. So this does mean that you can actually have triggers ready for your opponent, and your opponent will actually have to second guess themselves when they actually swing at your leader. And actually helping you to Dawn 2 to use this skill allows you to actually hit for a very decent number. And I must say, it's actually a very important skill for this deck. And yellow does have a lot of good triggers and also the Big Mom to really help the deck succeed in what it needs to do. So without further ado, let's dive right into the deck profile of the other cards. So just gonna move on to the main cards itself, get it out of the way. We're starting off with 4 Big Mom herself. Now why 4 pieces? Because it is a card you want to go into. Okay, the deck doesn't really offer a lot of pressure aside from Big Mom swinging for 7k. You do really want big bodies to end the game, and 12k bodies are super legit. Okay, they do hit very hard, especially when you can attach 10 Dawn to Big Mom, attacking for 22k there, and then just dealing a lot of damage. And of course, on play, you can actually heal 1 and do a damage to your opponent, and the opponent doesn't actually gain a hand card to hand, they just immediately take it to the drop zone. Next, we do just play 3 Katakuri, mainly because I'm going to provide more space for the other cards. But Katakuri is super important. It does have a very strong on-play ability, putting 8 costs below to the respective life. So meaning you can actually place Katakuri himself, if you want to the life, basically like 8 cost heal 1. Or usually you want to do it on your other trigger cards, which I'll be going through later. And of course, it's just a very decent 8k beater. And next, the staple. If you're playing Big Mom, you're definitely going to play the Pudding here. Shadow Pudding just allows you to search a top 4. A bit of a nerf there because you do see the Izo and Nami searching top 5. But this card just only search top 4. Searching top 4 for yellow Big Mom Pirate, adding to hand, or even a Sanji. Now why Sanji? Because Sanji is actually a 2k shield in yellow. Okay, so that's very important. So this is the staple. And we're going to move on to the triggers, which is definitely the fun part of yellow. First up, we do have 4 Shirahoshi. Now 4 can be quite a lot, but however, after experimenting a lot, I think Shirahoshi at 4 is definitely a must play in the yellow deck because it helps you to clean your hand. Usually you will have hand whereby you do have a lot of Big Mom or Katakuri in hand, and your opponent is just going to kill you that turn, and if you do survive that turn, you're actually going to go for the play anyway, or rather go for the win already. So Shirahoshi allows you to technically draw 1 extra card upon triggering. So what is its effect? Upon trigger, you can just play this card onto the field and then draw 3 cards and discarding 2. So if you do play it on hand, it doesn't really help you to gain any advantage. But however, if you take it from the life, you actually gain 1 card extra. And then 1 card usually can save the game, especially in One Piece context, because every hand is a shield. So next, we are talking about Broly. Now Broly is just a trigger blocker. We do see such cards coming out in forms of Boa Hancock in blue, but however in yellow it's especially stronger because you do have heal potential, and you do also have Big Mom to actually put it on top. So definitely this is 1 card that you really want to see in your deck. And lastly, to wrap up all the triggers in the deck, not playing a lot, you're just going to play Cracker. Now Cracker has a very strong ability. Now Dawn 1, if you do have less life than your opponent, it does gain additional 1k power, but also the double attack. Okay, so that's just nuts. You can actually just counter pressure your opponent, even though they have been pushing early, and then this card just come out from nowhere, from your life especially. They can actually start triggering your opponent. literally, because you can actually start applying that double attack onto your opponent, and your opponent will have to take usually very early in the game, especially when you do eat in the first damage, and your opponent will usually be more life than you, and then that's where you actually succeed in actually winning the game early. So next, just gonna go through the basic, I would say, the defense of the deck, which is going to be 2k shoes. I'm actually playing 12 of them, which is the max out potential for yellow, because there's only 3 2k shoes currently in the game. Why so many 2k shoes is basically because you're playing like Whitebeard. Okay, I'll be very honest, you are very inspired for Whitebeard on how the deck actually plays. You do have so much hand advantage with this deck, especially you're going to take your life very early because you want to trigger your big mom ability as soon as possible, and those hands do usually stack up, and having so many 2k shoes allow you to really counterplay your opponent, and your opponent will be having a hard time to actually deal with the final hit, especially when you do have big mom to actually heal you to the the better threshold. Okay, so moving on to the rest of the characters, we're actually playing 4 Daifuki. Now for this card, it's actually such a strong value adder. Okay, it's technically a draw 1 but more complicated. So on Dawn 1, on attacking, you can actually take the top card or the bottom card of your life to your hand, and then of course drawing, or rather put the top card of the deck to your life. So basically just a very complicated draw 1, very strong, very valuable, and just a 4 cost. It's actually very balanced, I would say. Next, I'll be playing the 3 cost vanilla. Now 3 cost vanilla is definitely a bit frowned upon. Like why? There are better choices out there. There's the other trigger card. There's also the Peril. It's a SR for a reason. But I'm choosing to play the 3 cost vanilla here. 2 reasons why. Okay. First reason is really for the shoe value. You really appreciate the shoe value in the late game. And for Peril, it is just a dead card in the late game. And you don't really want to draw your dead cards in the late game. You really want to survive thanks to Big Mom, really gain that late game advantage with all the shoe values you have possibly in your hand. And the second reason is because it's 3 costs. Okay, as a yellow player, your second turn is usually very weak. If you look at all your cards, there isn't actually any good second turn play other than pulling or just attaching 3 down to your mom and just swinging like that. But what if I tell you you can actually summon a vanilla and pressure your opponent in the next turn? So it's actually pretty decent. Okay, it might be frowned upon, but I really go by this way. This vanilla is super legit. Next, for the triggers, or rather the event, sorry, I'm gonna start off with 4 Thunderbolt. Now Thunderbolt is just a very straightforward, strong card. Very straightforward ability. 2 cons, you trash the top card of your life. You trash your opponent's 5 costs or below. Mainly the Marcos, a lot of good targets, I'll be very honest. But however, if you do trigger it in your security, or rather your life, sorry, you actually just kill one of your opponent 5 costs or below character, just like that. As simple as that, there's no cost for it, and don't forget you're playing Big Mom, so you can just slot this card on top of your life, and then your opponent will be scared. Especially those Whitebeard players, because they have a hard time hitting to your life while ensuring that their Marco stays alive. Because once you do have your 10 cost or your 8 cost bodies on the field and their Marco is being rested, they really need to rely on their hand fully just to guard the attacks. They can't rely on these Marcos again. Next, 3 Soul Pokers. Now this deck, like I said, you're playing towards Big Mom, and Big Mom does have a very strong ability to put your life, or rather just manipulate your life. And Soul Pokers has a very interesting ability. It allows your opponent to choose to give you life or just simply trash their own life. And of course, if you guys haven't already known, if your opponent doesn't have a life, he can actually just choose to pay the life steal, and you won't gain life anyway. So I don't opt to play more of this, mainly because of that. And you do know Whitebeard is everywhere, but however, against every other matchups, the trigger is what's so good about it, because you can actually, like I mentioned again, time and time again, Big Mom can put it on top, and with Big Mom, this ability just trigger the main effect, just like that, no cost. So it's technically like a Thunderbolt but more broken. And your opponent will just have to give you life most of the time, because if they were to choose to trash their life, you'll be reaching the lethal zone more sooner than expected. Next, I'm going to just play the Ikoku Sovereignty. Now this Ikoku Sovereignty event card, counter event, is really basic, okay? It's just a 2 cost plus 5k, very strong raw value, but it has a very strong trigger ability. allowing you to discard 2 cards from your hand, usually a dead cards, and you just gain 1 life. And if you don't really know, in One Piece, life is such a tough thing to deal against because your opponent will actually have to choose their dons carefully. And if you happen to have a lot of shield, the attack will be wasted. So they actually have to really plan ahead very well. And having that 1 extra life to work with is sometimes pretty strong. And just 1 copy because you'll be the main game plan is to really play towards the tank cost Big Mom over and over again. So you don't really have any active dot to use it. And I'll be very honest, just 1 copy will be enough. And with Big Mom ability again, you can actually just put it on top of your life if you really want to use the ability. So a couple of questions you guys may be asking is, why no 7 cost Mom? So same reason as Soul Focus. 7 cost Mom does allow your opponent to choose whether to trash a life or to gain a life. And against Whitebeard, which is the common deck now in the meta, it's not that great, sadly. But however, against every other deck, it's pretty strong. But I also come to realize on your turn 4, or rather your 7 to 8 Dawn play, using the Big Mom skill is actually more valuable than anything. And you actually have more room to play your Daifuku, your Cracker, and sometimes you can just hard drop the Vanilla, play the Pudding, and sometimes even the Mermaid here. So you really want that flexibility instead of playing on curve. And also sometimes you can just cast the Soul Focus and just force your opponent to make a choice. I do have also instances whereby I have 7 Dawn, I swing with my Mom Leader, putting the Soul Focus to life, and then with the 5 Dawn remaining, I just cast another Soul Focus. So it's a back-to-back Soul Focus, and your opponent will just be struggling really heavily with their Soul Focus, and then usually you just gain 2 extra life just like that. So thank you guys for watching till the end, and do consider subscribing, dropping a like and comment if you guys do enjoy the content.